Hey everybody, it's Webbs and Lanissum with Team Quantitative Easing here again for another Shoutcast. This time we are playing the new Siege game mode here. We're NATO, being surrounded by the Pact here on the outside. This is going to be our first Shoutcast that we've done with a new patch. We had some pretty good stuff to show you, but once again, all those replays got deprecated again. I had one where I basically pulled the MVP card out, and I was really happy with myself, and now there's absolutely no evidence left that I actually did it.
Yeah,
so,
a likely excuse, right?
Yes, a likely excuse. So this time we decided to do something a little bit interesting. We've played quite a few more Siege games than this, and we usually don't do a strategy like this. In this case, we actually decided to do a heavy tank rush, which I know that sounds a little bit confusing because how can you rush heavy tanks? They're really fat and slow. And you're going to see us get really lucky here quite a few times, either lucky or really skillful. I'm not really sure which. So Lanissum, if you'd care to outline the strategy of what we're doing at this point.
Alright, well if you'll zoom out, you'll see that we are surrounded by 4 spawning points. And we have an 8 ticket point right here. And the basic idea of siege mode is we have to take one of these 4 spawn points in order to actually use our high ticket value area. Whereas the enemy has to take and hold all of these spawn points to keep us from using them, while at the same time getting enough tickets to eventually overwhelm us. So it's rather like a siege. Now at the beginning of the game, what we are going to do in this match is attack Foxtrot, which is up north. And that would be me and Webbs attacking, while Llama attempts to hold Charlie from whatever attack they may send at us. And in this case, Webbs and I will be using a lot of heavy tanks, with a few infantry and recon and AA as appropriate, but mostly heavy tanks. And in this patch, in case you haven't heard, they've buffed heavy tanks such that they now shoot at 2,200 meters as opposed to 1,900. And that basically gives them a much better roll. There might be a few other slight buffs that it kind of feels like, but they've also heavily nerfed skirmishes and rocket artillery in general, which is great. And I'm rather satisfied with this patch in general. But the other thing they did was they increased the speed with which helicopters will deploy infantry, which is really nice.
Additionally, they also increased the repair cost for pretty much every unit, so...
yeah, I think the increased repair cost though was kind of a mistake, since they made it increase much more slowly, but they didn't change the per second usage, which I think was a bug, but whatever.
Additionally, artillery will also drain your fobs much more quickly than it will, or than it used to in previous patches, so unfortunately we don't use any artillery here, so we can't really show you that, but in previous replays, when I do call in a very heavy amount of artillery, you'll see it drain the fobs very, very fast.
Now, if we look at the enemy deployment, you'll see that it's 3-on-3, so it seems that oftentimes one of these deployment points will be rather weak, and in this case it looks like Foxtrot is almost completely unprotected so far, unless they're going to deploy anything there, but I don't recall. Was there really anything at Foxtrot?
No, there was absolutely no fight at Foxtrot at all.
Okay, so what's going to happen is Webbs and I are going to rush into Foxtrot ready for bear, and it's going to be a ghost town, which was unfortunate because, as you'll see, Llama would have needed your help a bit. Now, if you look at the enemy, they have a decent number of units at Hotel, about 4 artillery pieces, several tanks, mostly defensive, I think, there. In the south, they have a much larger concentration of units, a lot of infantry, a lot of tanks, 4 T-80As. That's some serious tank firepower there. And they are not holding Bravo. Instead, it looks like they're going to try and hold Golf. Then over at Echo, they have another large group of infantry and some artillery pieces and 4 box. Wow, that's some exceedingly large quantity of anti-aircraft there. They also have a bunch of BMP-2s.
I would like to point out that these Scott 2As right here are going to give us a heart attack at least twice in the very near future here, as they're going to push Llama really hard. These artillery pieces are going to force him out of position here in the south, which is going to allow these units over in Gulf to not really have any play with them at all. And in fact, it's probably going to make it a little bit more difficult for them because these Leopards are going to get drawn further back in, further concentrating this nice little defensive bubble around the command point in the center, which is the only 2 fobs we have. As you can see, the heavy tank rush, I'm burning tracks here and treads up going toward Foxtrot, where I expect to meet some kind of resistance, but as you'll see very soon, these MBT-70s and my other tanks are going to be able to see this UAZ command vehicle of Pravati's right here, and they're just going to shoot it and it's going to die really fast.
Yeah, and I should note I had a rather lackluster performance here. I don't know why, but for whatever reason I didn't use move fast, and I was late to arrive to the knock button. And as Llama here is detecting the attack, you know, I redirect my forces, but I decided instead of going to the hill, I'm going to try flanking. And basically my tanks just drive in circles for no real reason. Now, if you look in the north of Charlie, they've run into a platoon of infantry, which is going to be holding them off for quite a bit. And on the other side of that, you'll see my 3 artillery pieces, which are taking aim to do their duty for the country right about now. And what you'll like is, you know, there's a huge blob of enemy infantry, which is a perfect artillery target. And here come the first shells. Lots of death and destruction right there. My infantry are also closing the point-blank range just to keep them locked in position. And I think I just blew up my own infantry there. Yeah. But it seems to put a halt on that attack more or less right there from those infantry. I think it's safe to say these players do not seem to have quite the high skill level, or at least lack of coordination, since they're really not making any cohesive effort to defend or attack.
I would like to point out that coordination is oftentimes more important than your actual level in this game, as really once you get to about level 20, you've unlocked most of the main units that provide the backbone of your attacks. And even though you might not have the absolute heaviest tanks, as we've seen in previous videos, heavily vetted lower tier tanks can be just as effective as their higher tier counterparts when played correctly. And so for good players who have good concentration and, you know, very high coordination with other players on their team, it really doesn't matter.
And I should note that we are all in Skype in this siege mode, which really requires lots of teamwork. Right now, you can see that their infantry have broken through our defenses, and it's not really infantry as much as it's just the APCs, but we didn't really notice that at the time.
Now notice, they really don't see what we have at this point, so now Llama's tanks are moving in. We see some choppers here, and we're screaming, oh my god, where are the chaparrals? They're actually up here with me doing whatever I am over in Delta and Foxtrot, desperately trying to burn my way back toward Charlie in order to flank these. And as you're going to see in a little bit, these BMP-2 ogres are going to try and get into this forest where these infantry are now, and they're going to get completely eaten alive by my heavy tanks. This Sultan over here is being chased by these Scots.
And it gets detracked for a full minute. It's just hopeless.
It is. And the best part is, it's going to live.
Yeah, that's command armor for you. Meanwhile, my units finally begin arriving back from their, circuitous route home. And my micro is horrible. I have like a bunch of heavy tanks just sitting in the open doing nothing. Of course, it's probably because I'm too busy looking at the Sultan freaking out. But fortunately,
also,
armored. So,
here's heart attack number 2 coming up from the south. An additional 8 Scott 2AMs here going up toward the artillery and the Sultan. And by this point,
guys have actual missiles and stuff too, so they're dangerous. Extremely dangerous.
And so they're stopping here, and they're probably stopping to shoot at the artillery pieces, but that's putting them directly in range of these Leopard 1A1s here, which are going to be quite the hero tanks. Move up, take out these Scott 2AMs very easily, especially at this such close distance here. Not to mention the fact that these M109s are also shooting at them.
Yeah, and it seems that the Sultan has finally survived its ordeal and is quickly moving back into cover. You'll see on the far south that the enemy is making a push. But they're basically going to end up walking to some forest here after destroying Alman's cheap tanks.
That's Llama, by the way.
Yeah, Llama. And, yeah, so they've just blown them away. There's even T-80As in this attack, too.
So yeah, these Leopard 1A1s not really going to stand much of a chance. Only 9 riflemen in those woods, so they're going to get wasted as well.
There's a full platoon of riflemen, actually.
Oh, okay. I didn't see those 30. I guess they were just deployed.
Yeah, just deployed.
Okay, so there are the BMP-2s here that are also going to attack these Leopards here.
The enemy tanks just roll into the woods and get shot up by my infantry right there.
Although I don't know how much damage they're actually going to do here.
That's a questionable amount, really.
Because as you can see, they just got wiped out right there by one volley of tank fire.
Basically no damage. Well, actually, they did some damage, but didn't kill anything. Which is interesting. They might have slightly nerfed infantry or something.
And now by this point, we have 3 different pronged attacks going on here. The attack that came in over here that was over by the Sultan got repelled pretty easily. But now we have these 8 BMP-2s, this helicopter here, support, which is refilling these BMP2s and repairing them, plus the heavy armor attack from the south, and these 8 groups of infantry, although they're getting artilleried right now, so they won't be a threat for much longer.
We have been forced to pull back our defense perimeter from like the south side just to cover the half of the hill that we own.
And now, in addition, we have an additional problem. These 2 Havocs right here that are going to prove to be quite a pain in the butt for quite some time. However, now as you can see, my heavy armor column right here is beginning to arrive.
With 264s, destroying my artillery pieces.
Llama's tanks here proving to be quite the hero tanks, trying to hold them off just long enough for my AMX-32s and MBT-70s to get into range to actually shoot these guys. I managed to kill 2 of them before I get there. Well, they're pulling back. Only 2 Leopard 2A2s on the defense here, holding them back.
Yeah, the enemy should have pushed his T-80s, T-64s in the south at the same time as the BMP-2s are in the fight.
But right now, these BMP-2s are dead. They just don't know it, because here come the AMX-32s right up on them, point blank. And you're going to see these BMP-2s are going to die just like that, right immediately, get wiped out. One volley of AMX-32 fire.
That was crazy fast.
And it looks like the T-64 attack that was over in the east got pushed back. As you can see, 2 of these tanks almost completely destroyed. The other 2 are fine, but they're pulling back. Those are very expensive tanks, 100 a pop, as you can see, but pretty good statistics.
And,
here comes the heavy armor push, but by this point, my heavy armor column is also already prepared for this. In addition, I captured their supply trucks, so now my tanks are being repaired at the same time. Lose an AMX-32, but that's okay, because I know I'm going to be able to smoke these T-80s. Just like that, you see they took extreme damage in one volley of fire.
Take note of the fact that on the left are Webb's AMX-32s, and on the right are my Leopard 2s, and Llama's Leopard 1s. And this devolves into a big fight with the T-80s, don't have side armor that is that great, and so now they're just going to get destroyed. Complete massacre for the packed forces there. They really should have coordinated their push a bit better.
That was approximately, just to keep score, at least 800 points worth of losses right there in that one attack. They took out 2 AMX-32s of mine, which is 200 points worth of losses, and Lanissum, I don't think you lost anything, did you?
No, I lost nothing.
Okay.
They got 2 of Llama's, like Leopard 2A1s, which are,
Leopard
like
1A1s, or?
Leopard, yeah, 1A1s. That's like 50 points.
Right. So these infantry here, getting in range of these heavy tanks, they're going to get destroyed too. HE power of these heavy tanks is definitely going to rip these infantry apart. 3 HE power per shell, so quite a bit of explosive force.
Yeah. So it would be pretty clear that we've pretty much repulsed the enemy's main attacks, and now they're going to be struggling to recover from this. But I think they lack the coordination. Did Llama just call in a bunch of new M1A1s?
I do believe he did, actually. Although I don't think they're going to see too much fight.
Yeah, I don't think they will either. And the AA repulses some gunships, and the first person surrenders.
We also did have an issue. We thought those infantry were going to be able to push up into this fob and kill the chaparral and take the fob. But fortunately, these 6 Cobras were sitting here. I'd actually kind of forgotten about them until now. But fortunately, I remembered they were there, so...
Which fob are you talking about?
The center fob in Charlie.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
So by this point, I begin immediately moving my heavy armor column toward Echo, which is really their stronghold at this point. These 4 pieces of arty are kind of becoming a pain, so we decided to go get rid of them. We're going to quickly find out there are these 4 bucks here, and there goes the other surrender. So now by this point, it's only Mad Max Killa against all of us. They're seriously down, massive point deficit. You can see we're leading them almost 2-1.
Yeah, I have to say, with siege mode like this, once the attackers anyone really runs out of units, it's pretty much over. Especially for the attackers, since they aren't really getting that many points to begin with. And, yeah, at this point, this poor guy he's out-microed by the 3 of us. He probably has way too many units for him to really know what to use, since, he just got a bunch of units that he didn't really know what the disposition is. And he probably has not very many points to begin with.
Now, I would like to point out that I do believe that for whoever is being besieged, I think Alamo is easier than the other siege map that was released.
Probably, and on the other siege map, I think it's the Last Stand.
Right.
You get split up.
You are separated by a lake, which in this case, it is very easy for us to move reinforcements from one side of this point to the other, whereas on Last Stand, very difficult to do. These Cobras right here are going to get very, very lucky, as you're about to find out. Fortunately, my heavy armor comes upon these bucks right here, right as my choppers start to get in range. And, of course, being heavy armor with 10 accuracy and stabilizers, these AMX-32s are going to completely obliterate these bucks.
Yeah,
just like that.
Not pretty. Yeah, they just don't have enough units to hold us off at this point.
No, they certainly do not.
And in this case, I'm basically following you, attempting to get in on the slaughter, but not quite in time.
And then my Cobras just say, nope, that arty is property of Webb's. Those points are mine. They're going to get absolutely decimated by rocket fire right there.
At the end, it seemed that Webb's had like 3,000 points, and I was flabbergasted. This is impossible. There's no way. But he's well on his way. 2,400. Wow, that was an expensive command drop. Yeah, so Webb's is well on his way to 3,000 points right there. As far as a bit of theory as how Siege, oh, there he goes. Yeah, so pretty much what they probably should have done was, as attacker, or besiegers, since, attacker-defender doesn't really apply in Siege mode, as besiegers, what they should have really been doing was holding their respawn points at all costs, and attriting us slowly. And this might mean taking like one of the other point-giving spawns, but what they had to do is repel our first 1 or 2 assaults against their respawn points, and that way, once we lost a bunch of units, they could then begin closing in on us, right? But what they did here is they just kind of threw units at us, and although it got hectic, we were able to repulse them, and since we had more points and we had a spawn, we were able to out-trick them, and then they started quitting, and it was over.
The only thing I will say is that based on their unit composition that they called in, the only point that I think they may have had a chance of holding was the southernmost left point, and I do not remember which one that is off the top of my head. But
yeah, I can't tell you either.
Right.
On the scroll.
I think that is the only one because they spawned in very heavy tanks there. I think that is the only point which they may have possibly had a chance of holding based on their unit composition, because in the north, anti-aircraft, a few Scots, I think 3 Scots, and some BMP-2s, which against heavy tanks with a range of 2,200 meters, plus recon, which we had quite a bit of, they wouldn't stand a chance at all.
Yeah, pretty much we could have taken any one of these points if we wanted to. They were not really focused on besieging us as much as they thought attack versus defense, which is not really an accurate way of thinking about siege.
Right. We do have another replay where the attackers went very heavy smirches, and as much as they did nerf smirches, the smirches were very effective in that game. So I think in our next replay we'll show you that one, which is really how Siege should be played, because they can continue to call in more resupply and have quite a few fobs as long as they defend them. And they played that one a little bit better than this team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I still think it wasn't very good, though, since they had so many smirches.
They did. I believe they had 8 smirches.
At least. And, they didn't really kill that much with the smirches either.
Well, they did manage to kill command trucks.
Well, 1. And that's because you didn't call in a command armor. Which, let's be honest, you really need to get command armor. It's like only 20 points more. Yes.
And I will admit, the basic command trucks are really only there to be able to be spammed in numbers. And
spammed?
Right, yes, you do not want to spam command trucks, but in this particular case, having more command trucks actually might not be a bad thing. But regardless, you need to be able to keep your command vehicles alive.
Yeah.
And in that game, we lost 1 command vehicle at the very beginning of the match to smirch fire, which was it just came from nowhere. They just randomly fired in the middle of, into the center woods inside of the center point, and got lucky and killed that command vehicle. And you only have to do that a few times, especially if it's a 3v3. You only have to do that at least 3 times in order to win the game.
Once, really, and your siege is stuck, holding that point or risking a long traversal to one of the spawning points.
Now, admittedly, we have seen that done to great effect.
Yeah. Actually, I think we were besiegers in that one. Yeah.
We
should probably wrap up this episode as we clatter on.
Yes, as we continue reminiscing about things we haven't shown you. So in 12 minutes, 55 seconds, we managed to beat this team here, which, I think again, lack of coordination definitely hurt them, plus not being able to really effectively hold off that tank rush, not putting infantry in woods, which would have certainly hurt us, definitely hurt them. So that's all for this particular replay. We will come back to you next time with another replay of Siege Mode, which I think was a little bit better, but still not quite good enough.
Yeah, it's hard to find a good public team, really.
Indeed it is.
All right,
Until next time.
Next time.